Samuel couldn't stop thinking about that night in the bathroom. It had started as a simple trip to relieve himself, but ended with a terrifying experience he couldn't explain. A whispered voice from behind him, get out now," had sent him stumbling backward in fear. When he turned around, there was no one there, yet the voice had been so clear, so angry. What was happening in this grand old Victorian house? Three years earlier, Samuel had been a simple baker, selling bread and pastries from his bicycle through the neighborhoods of a small New England town. At 20 years old, he was dedicated to his craft, refusing to return home until he'd sold everything. His determination had earned him loyal customers and a steady income. One spring day, Samuel decided to expand his route to include the wealthy neighborhood on the edge of town. The elegant houses there were owned by old money families, and he thought they might appreciate his artisanal baked goods. As he pedaled through the neighborhood, ringing his bicycle bell and occasionally calling out fresh bread, a housekeeper emerged from one of the grand white Victorian homes. The woman, Mrs. Johnson, approached with a tray, eager to select some pastries. While Mrs. Johnson was choosing, Samuel caught a glimpse of a young woman watching from one of the upper windows. She was beautiful, with delicate features that hinted at Asian ancestry. When their eyes met, the young woman offered a shy smile. "She's pretty, isn't she?" Mrs. Johnson commented, noticing Samuel's gaze. I wasn't," Samuel stammered. "It's all right," Mrs. Johnson said with a knowing smile. "But she never leaves the house. Such a shame." "Why not?" Samuel asked. "I don't really know. The family is quite peculiar. All the lights must be turned off before nightfall, and all staff must leave before sunset, including me." Before Samuel could ask more questions, Mrs. Johnson paid for her pastries and returned to the house. But the image of the young woman at the window stayed with him. Over the next few days, he made sure to pass by the white Victorian house on his route, hoping for another glimpse. Each time, the beautiful young woman would be watching, and they would exchange smiles. Sometimes Samuel would linger longer than necessary, pretending to arrange his goods, just to steal a moment of connection with the mysterious woman. One day, as Samuel stopped in front of the house, a sleek black car pulled into the driveway. An elegant couple emerged, a tall, distinguished man with European features and a petite woman with Asian features. The man strode directly into the house, but the woman glanced toward Samuel, examining him carefully from head to toe. To Samuel's surprise, the woman approached him and asked in accented English, "Who are you?" "I'm Samuel," he replied nervously. "I sell bread in the neighborhood." The woman's stern expression suddenly softened into a smile. "I'm Mrs. Eleanor Chun. Would you like to come inside for a moment?" Surprised by the invitation, Samuel followed Mrs. Chun into the grand house. Once inside, Mrs. Chun called for her daughter. "Elizabeth, come down, please." When Elizabeth appeared, Samuel was struck again by her beauty. She was even lovelier up close, with luminous skin and delicate features. They exchanged shy greetings, and Samuel could feel something special in that moment, a connection that transcended their brief acquaintance. What happened next shocked Samuel completely. Mrs. Chun abruptly asked, "Would you like to marry my daughter?" Samuel was speechless, unable to process such an unexpected question. But when he looked at Elizabeth's hopeful face, something in his heart answered before his mind could catch up. "Yes," he said, "I would." Elizabeth smiled radiantly, and when Mrs. Chun asked her daughter if she agreed, Elizabeth nodded shyly. "Yes, mother. Within weeks, a small, private wedding was arranged. Mrs. Chen insisted that only immediate family attend, and that afterward, Samuel would move into their home rather than Elizabeth moving out. Still caught in the whirlwind romance, Samuel agreed to everything. The wedding was simple but elegant, attended only by Samuel's family and Elizabeth's parents and brother, Michael. Afterward, Samuel moved into the grand house, leaving behind his bread-selling business at Mrs. Chen's insistence. "Your only job now is to take care of Elizabeth," Mrs. Chen told him firmly. On their first night as a married couple, Samuel and Elizabeth retired early, exhausted from the day's events. But in the middle of the night, Samuel woke needing to use the bathroom down the hall. As he passed through the house, he noticed a family portrait hanging on the wall. In the portrait were Mr. and Mrs. Chen, their son Michael, and another young woman whose face had been strangely defaced in the photograph. Samuel noticed that Elizabeth wasn't in the picture at all, which he found odd. After using the bathroom, Samuel was startled by loud knocking on the door, becoming more insistent by the second. "Just a minute, someone's in here," he called, but the knocking continued. When he opened the door, there was no one there. But on the kitchen floor, he spotted a red glove, the same one Elizabeth had worn during their wedding. As he bent to pick it up, he heard a harsh whisper from behind him. "Get out! Get out now!" Samuel spun around in terror, but saw no one. When he looked back at the floor, the red glove had vanished. Heart pounding, he hurried back toward their bedroom. As he passed through the living room, he heard a crash. Looking down, he saw only a piece of paper had fallen, though the sound had seemed much louder. As he bent to pick it up, he glimpsed through the space between his legs a pair of woman's feet in small, embroidered silk shoes behind him. When he whirled around, there was no one there. Trembling with fear, Samuel rushed back to their bedroom, where Elizabeth slept peacefully. Clearly, whatever had been in the bathroom and living room wasn't his wife. For the next few months, Samuel tried to forget the strange occurrences and focused on his new life with Elizabeth. He noticed that his in-laws were often absent from the house, leaving the newlyweds alone most days. Then came the full moon, and with it, the first sign of Elizabeth's mysterious illness. That night, Elizabeth's body suddenly burned with fever, and strange red spots appeared on her skin. She screamed in agony, thrashing on the bed. Samuel panicked, but noticed that the rest of the family seemed oddly calm, as if they'd seen this before. While Samuel tried to comfort his wife, Mrs. Chen simply called Michael, who arrived carrying a live chicken. To Samuel's horror, Michael slaughtered the chicken and collected its blood in a bowl. Mrs. Chen then took the blood and began rubbing it over Elizabeth's body as she bathed her, causing Elizabeth to scream even more intensely. After the blood bath, Elizabeth was returned to bed, where she finally calmed down. Only then did Mrs. Chen take Samuel aside to explain. "Elizabeth has a condition that flares up during the full moon," she said gravely. "I hope you can be patient with her. And you should know, she cannot have children. Will that be a problem for you?" Though surprised by this revelation, Samuel's love for Elizabeth was unconditional. "No, that's not a problem. I'll stay by her side no matter what." 3 years into their marriage, however, Elizabeth expressed a desire for a child. Samuel was conflicted, remembering Mrs. Chen's warning, but he also wanted to fulfill his wife's wish. That night, they decided to try for a baby. Weeks later, Elizabeth's illness returned unexpectedly, outside the full moon cycle. Mrs. Chen was visibly distressed this time and called for a doctor who specialized in traditional medicine. When the doctor examined Elizabeth and discovered she was in the early stages of pregnancy, Mrs. Chen erupted in anger. I told you she cannot have children. Why did you disobey?" She ordered Samuel out of the room, locking him out. All night, Samuel waited in the living room, hearing muffled sounds from behind the closed door. In the morning, Mrs. Chen emerged with a black bag, still furious. "This is all your fault," she spat. "Whatever happens to Elizabeth now, you must not leave her. Do you understand?" She thrust the black bag at Samuel. "Your child is in here. Bury it in the backyard. You've lost it because of your own actions." Shocked and heartbroken, Samuel did as he was told, burying what he believed to be their lost child behind the house. When he returned to see Elizabeth, he was horrified to find his wife transformed. In just 24 hours, Elizabeth's once beautiful face had aged dramatically, becoming wrinkled and gaunt. Her body had withered to skin and bones. Despite his alarm, Samuel wept not for the changes in Elizabeth's appearance, but for her suffering. He held his wife's cold hand and promised, "I won't leave you no matter what." Elizabeth, tears in her eyes, squeezed Samuel's hand weakly. "You won't leave me, will you?" she whispered, as if this was her greatest fear. "I promise I'll never leave you," Samuel assured her, meaning every word. That evening, Samuel went to get dinner for Elizabeth. First stopping in the bathroom to wash up, he was looking in the mirror when he saw the reflection of a woman behind him, a woman with a horribly disfigured face. Terrified, Samuel spun around, but the woman was really there, not just a reflection. "I told you to get out," the woman screamed, lunging forward to grab Samuel's neck. Samuel broke free and ran back to their bedroom, only to find Elizabeth barely breathing. His wife's skin was now ice cold, her face deathly pale. "Samuel," Elizabeth whispered, removing her ring with trembling fingers. "If you truly love me, keep this ring safe." She pressed it into Samuel's palm. "My time is running out." Before Samuel could respond, Elizabeth took her final breath and was gone. Samuel, first shocked by the bathroom encounter and now by the sudden death of his wife, was completely devastated. In the days that followed, Elizabeth was laid to rest. Strangely, while Samuel and his family were overcome with grief, Elizabeth's family showed no signs of sadness. In fact, Mrs. Chen seemed almost relieved, which Samuel found deeply disturbing. After the funeral, Samuel sought out the traditional doctor who had treated Elizabeth, determined to understand what had really happened to his wife. What the doctor revealed shook him to his core. Mrs. Chen had actually given birth to 3 children, Michael and twin daughters, Elizabeth and Emily. From birth, Elizabeth had a physical condition that caused premature aging and split thumbs, while Emily was perfectly normal. When the children were young, the family struggled financially. Mr. Chen worked as a factory laborer, while Mrs. Chen was unemployed. Desperate to escape poverty, Mrs. Chen had consulted a practitioner of dark magic who demanded a sacrifice in exchange for wealth, a beautiful virgin girl who had not yet reached puberty. Mrs. Chen sacrificed Emily to this entity, and as promised, the family suddenly became wealthy. But the bargain required another virgin daughter to be sacrificed every 20 years to maintain their prosperity. With only Elizabeth left, and her physical imperfections making her unsuitable as a sacrifice, Mrs. Chen would negotiate with the entity during each full moon, promising to keep Elizabeth a virgin until the 20-year mark. The illness Elizabeth experienced during full moons was actually the entity claiming her, while she was protected by her twin sister's spirit, the same spirit that had confronted Samuel in the bathroom. When Mrs. Chen discovered Elizabeth was pregnant, she was furious because it ruined her plan. The doctor revealed that Mrs. Chen had terminated the pregnancy and taken the fetus to the dark practitioner as an alternative sacrifice. The entity accepted the offering but reduced the time frame. They would need to provide another sacrifice in 10 years instead of 20. The black bag Samuel had buried contained nothing of importance. It was just a ruse to hide what really happened to their unborn child. The doctor also explained that Mrs. Chun had placed a charm on Elizabeth in the form of a ring, which made her appear beautiful to Samuel, while others saw her true appearance. The woman in the defaced photo in the hall was actually Elizabeth herself. After learning these horrible truths, Samuel felt overwhelming grief and anger, but most of all, profound sympathy for Elizabeth, who had been so cruelly used by her own mother. Though heartbroken, Samuel kept his promise. He treasured Elizabeth's ring for the rest of his life and never married again, remaining faithful to the memory of the woman he had truly loved.